Good morning, Thokozani, Amagwini. Greetings to all the beautiful children of God, all the star seeds, all my fellow healers, all of those who are awakening and on the journey. A blessed morning to you. This is a long overdue video, and today we're going to talk about leadership and the anointing and the gifting of leadership and all the things that come with it. So I'm just going to share a little bit of my own experience of being a leader. I've been blessed enough to serve in leadership positions at work and at church. And it's not an easy journey. And you definitely do have to have a gifting and an anointing for it, because if you don't, it's just all too easy to give up. Because it's not always easy to get people to do the things that you want them to do when you want them to do them, because human beings have free will and they will do whatever they choose to. I've been watching videos on YouTube by a lady, and she uses her account name as Inyenyezi, and I think this is like Nyenyezi in Shona or Naledi or Inkanyezi in isiZulu or Nguni. And she speaks about Proto-Bantu people and the Proto-Bantu language, of which that has been, its existence has been largely wiped out. But obviously through research, people are starting to put the pieces together and bring it back to life. And it's very interesting because the language that is used in the pyramids, in the hieroglyphics, once you've put back the vowels, you can map it back to Proto-Bantu languages that are still spoken in Southern Africa today. And they've actually done that with Chitonga, which is spoken in northern Zimbabwe and Zambia. And they found that when you've take the vowels out of the words, they map back exactly to the original meaning of what was written on the papyri and on the walls of the pyramids in Kemet, or what is called Egypt today. So that was very interesting, because when you listen to the language, some of the words sound very similar to words that we use today in Shona or Karanga or Ndau. In some of the words are similar to the ones that we use in isiZulu, as well as isiXhosa, the Nguni languages. And I'll give an example. She uses a word called Majwi, spelled Maduwi, and in Ndau or Karanga, that would be Mazwi, and in isiZulu or the Nguni languages, that would be Amazwi, meaning words. So that word means all the same thing. But the one that really intrigued me from the video that I watched today, and I'll put a link in the description below, is when she speaks of abapati, what we call abapati in Nguni languages. We've now taken that word to mean leader, and in the original Proto-Bantu language, it actually means guardian. So a leader is not just one that tells people what to do, but a leader is also a guardian. And a guardian is one that looks after the interests of the people, which is very interesting, because now if you look at the concept of leadership and the context in which we operate, particularly in corporate entities today, leadership is, from a Western logical, rational perspective, leadership is about ambition. It's about your career. It's about pursuing your goals. It's about being seen and being heard, and your ideas, taking precedence. And you have, the most famous, books on leadership, or the leaders of in the field, or those that provide thought leadership when it comes to leadership itself. You have books like those of Stephen Covey, on how to influence people. And it's really about making people go the direction that you want them to go. And leadership is about that to a certain extent. But I'm finding as I delve more into African spirituality, African history, understanding African culture and tradition, our paradigm or concept of leadership is not so much about me as an individual fulfilling my dreams and ambitions and being the one that everybody listens to. It is very much about my ability to create a better future and a better world and the survival of the people. It's very interesting because there's a grey lorry sitting on the tree not too far from me that keeps interrupting me. It could just be the bird being a bird, but it could also be a sign that there's somebody that doesn't want me to say these things. I'm going to shift my mat a little bit because I am sitting on my grass mat. Interesting comment. I said that it flew from the tree where it was. It's now flown to the tree directly above me. I'm just going to pause my camera so I can just shift a bit. Right, we're back in a better position. I told the bird to go away. Interestingly, it's a lorry called the go away bird. And in Nguni languages, isiZulu, we call it umguwe. So I just told it to go away. So yeah, don't think we'll be interrupted anymore. But yes, the Western rational logical perspective is one that prioritizes individuality, individual ambition, and you making things happen for yourself. While from what I am perceiving, from what I'm reading and learning about our cultures and traditions, in the African context, leadership is about the community, the people, and not about me. And I think this realization has helped me understand why I often found myself in conflict with other people, especially at work, with my superiors, because they're all about the bag, right? They're all about the money. They're all about their own careers and being seen and, influencing the situation for their own benefit and not for the collective benefit of their teams. And that has always not been how I see things. And when I look back at some of the conflicts that I've been in and had with the people that are in authority over me or colleagues, it has often been about that. They want to do something that suits them individually and forget about the rest of the people, while I'm more interested in doing something that will actually collectively benefit the people. I'm not saying I'm perfect or a saint, it's just my inclination. I guess coming to an understanding of having been reincarnated several times, I think I come to a realization that when leadership is for the benefit of the community or the collective, everyone benefits, including myself. So my life path, and when I read my own astrology charts and I do my Enneagram assessments and all the assessments that are out there, my natural inclination is to do things that are for the greater good, which is often not in alignment with the prevailing corporate culture, which is very much about doing things for yourself. So, which brings me to the issue of the anointing for leadership. And this is not specific to a particular culture or tradition or cultural group. I'm trying to avoid using the words race and tribe because of just the way they are. It's just, I feel like it's really just important to look at ourselves collectively as humanity, and specifically to us as abantu, isizwe sakwantu, because whether we like it or not, as melanated beings, we are different. People of other races have tried to imply, or not really imply, they haven't implied, they have outrightly called us inferior. They have enslaved us and done all manner of things to us to persuade us to believe that we are lesser beings. But if you really look at the evidence, the melanated being is the greater being. And you just have to look at any discipline where there is a fair and level playing field. Melanated people excel. If you go into athletics, you look at sprints like Usain Bolt. I don't recall any of the shorter sprint events being won by a non-melanated being for the last 20 years. You think Carl Lewis, Usain Bolt, the others I'm forgetting. If you go to the women's races, you look at Flojo, Florence Griffith Joyner, among others. Melanated people, we are great at what we do. If you read about Black History Month in February, where they chronicle the achievements of melanated people, black people, if you want to call it that, but melanated beings, you'll find that there are a lot of things that were invented by people of color that were misappropriated, with patents registered in the names of non-melanated beings and corporations and things like that. And then these things continue to happen today. You go back to even in music, you look at the amount of content that is produced by melanated people, and how over the years that has been misappropriated, stolen, and it continues to happen still in the field of medicine. They come to indigenous people all over the world. They ask about their remedies and what they cure and what they this and what do they do. And next thing you know, they've registered a patent. They are putting restrictions. You can no longer gather. You can no longer this. And you're then told, oh no, you cannot take your herbal medicine and sell it and say that it cures whatever, because it's not subject to a patent, it's not registered with the Medicines Control Authority and all of those things. So I think where I'm going with this is that the white Western rational logical perspective is very much about the individual and individual gains and greed, while the original paradigm of most melanated peoples, who actually were run by matriarchal societies, matriarchy and leadership, with a strong matriarchal or feminine influence, understood the importance of community and doing things for the sake of the community. So yeah, that was a rather long-winded introduction, and I apologize, but I guess I had to get that out. But when we talk about a leadership anointing, particularly in the African spiritual context, and it was quite interesting, I had a very good engagement with a gentleman on X, and his name is Clive Simpkins, because I started talking about Amakosi and how Amakosi confer an anointing for leadership. And Amakosi relates to ancestors that were royal when they were still alive and they have transitioned. I'm also trying to avoid to use the word dead, because for African people, when our loved ones leave this world, they're not dead, as in they'll never come alive again. They're actually alive and well, but living in another realm. So, and those of us who are spiritual, we're blessed enough to be able to meet with them in those other realms when we dream and when we do astral travel and things like that. So the dead are not really gone, dead, quote unquote. Our transitioned loved ones are not really gone. But Amakosi are the spirits of our ancestors who were royal when they were alive, and they are given a specific assignment by Umkulu Wabomkulu, which is the head of the clan, to guide specific people who have been gifted, i.e., they were given an assignment before they were born, whether to be a healer, a leader, or whatever else. And Amakosi come to you as guides to give you wisdom, to give you knowledge, to give you foresight, to give you insight, and to help you to solve problems. Because as King Solomon, or the philosopher, wrote in the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, there's nothing new under the sun. The things we think are a problem today were a problem even back then, and they will continue to be problems. So the guidance doesn't grow old. It doesn't get old. So the guidance doesn't get old because the problems are still the same. The guidance doesn't get old because the problems are still the same. The ones that we had then, the ones that we have now, they're very much the same. So the guidance doesn't get old. So they appear often in dreams, at least in my experience, and other people will have different experiences, as one of the big five. Either it's a lion, or it is a leopard, or an elephant. For some people it's a rhinoceros, and for other people it's a buffalo. So if you come from a specific clan, or you have ancestors from those clans in your bloodline, you will see the big five, one or more, or all of them. I commonly see my royal ancestors in my dreams appearing either as lions, leopards, occasionally the cheetah, because it's a big cat as well, although not one of the big five. I have seen elephants in my dreams, but I have never actually seen a rhinoceros or a buffalo. I guess my ancestors are not necessarily from those clans. But there's a gentleman called Smart Makosizwe, I think his name is. I'll put his name in the chat. He appears on Twitter as well, and he talks about Amakosi and the link between Amakosi and universal spirits. So I also happen to have among my guardians universal spirits, which is why I work mostly in church, and I have more of a gift of prayer and teaching and clear cognizance, and not so much, ubungoma, the specific gift of shamanism that is associated with healers in your bloodline who are of Nguni origin, because it's a very specific gift. That's just not my gift, and I've spoken about that in other videos. But Amakosi confer the gifts of leadership, so you have the ability to speak and people will listen to you. You have the ability to lead. You'll find that if you have Amakosi among your guardians and leadership is one of your giftings, even if you're sitting quietly in a crowd minding your own business and something needs to be done, either people will choose you to lead and or speak on their behalf, or you will just get annoyed with the situation because you have a solution and you'll get up and you'll just do it. It's just comes with the anointing. So it's not that we are papa or uzenza ngcono, you're just out there trying to be seen, or that you're trying to make a name for yourself. It's just how you are, and it's how you are because you have a specific assignment as a leader in this incarnation, in this lifetime. So Amakosi confer the gifts of leadership. Now, what also happens, unfortunately, is that in the spirit world you have ranks. Just like at work, you've got ranks. You're a supervisor, you're a first line manager, you're a middle manager, you're a senior manager, you're an executive, or you're the chief executive. You have ranks in the spirit as well. So you find that Amakosi from different clans have different ranks, I guess, depending on how they performed over their lifetimes, the knowledge that they gained in their different incarnations, the experiences that they garnered. They have certain abilities, certain experiences, right? Back in the day in Africa, particularly, but I think everywhere in the world, and I've seen it even when we watch some of the European movies. It's fiction, but often, it's truth hidden in plain sight. You went through an initiation process if you were to be a leader. When you look at the European royals, the coronation, that is the culmination of an initiation process. The initiation begins from when you're young. You are taught how to conduct yourself. You are given guidance on what to do in certain situations. There's certain rituals and ceremonies which they probably don't show you, that happen behind the scenes, and then you have the coronation itself. And it's interesting when you watch Game of Thrones. We just recently started watching it. The concept of being a king or a queen, you cannot be king or queen even if you have the right by your birth order or bloodline, unless you go through a coronation, because the coronation is a very public event and it's a ritual and a ceremony that announces to everybody present that you are the anointed leader, the king, the queen, right? So you have ranks in among Amakos. There are some that are greater, there are some that are lesser, right? And what often happens with gifted children, particularly in corporate, particularly those of us who are gifted with leadership, is that your guardian spirits, guides, or angels, whatever tradition you subscribe to, but your guardians often are of a higher rank than the guardians of the person that is put in authority over you. Remember, in corporate, it's about managing your career, right? You're talking to the right people, you've got the right networks. When opportunities arise, you apply or you're headhunted, and you're put into the position based on your past experience and what they perceive to be your abilities. And a lot of people lie in corporate. They lie about their qualifications, they lie about their experiences. And as a line manager myself, who's been in a position of recruiting people, it's not very easy to tell whether somebody's telling the truth. You have to give them the benefit of the doubt and give them the job and see whether they perform. And sometimes when people realize that they're about to be found out, they quickly move jobs and they move on, right? The other people that move jobs and move on because they just cannot handle the drama anymore. I'm just one of those people. I don't like drama. I don't like drama and conflict-ridden situations. They are energetically for me very draining. So I moved jobs quite a lot because I just could not handle the level of, unnecessary drama and conflict. And I've realized now with the spiritual work that I'm doing and my spiritual journey that the drama and conflict was part of my journey, because there are some of us whose gifting and anointing is that of triggering people. Okay, it's not fun. Trust me, it's not fun. It's not fun to be the one that walks into the place and spots that the line manager is a narcissist and triggers their narcissism and suddenly becomes the target. Um, it's not fun. But for some of us, that is the path. Your spiritual path and your assignment is to go into these places and shine that light and reveal that which people have been too scared to reveal a lot of the times, and to actually fight back and stand up for those people that have not been able to stand up for themselves, right? It's a difficult path, but that is what it is. It's the same path if you do numerology, the life path number 8. That was Nelson Mandela's life path. It was also Winnie Mandela's life path. Very difficult life path indeed. Very difficult assignment that they both chose, but necessary to free the people. I know people out there will say, "Oh, Mandela was a sellout, etc., etc." That's fine. It's a conversation for another day. But he chose a very difficult assignment and a very difficult life path. Um, and if you spend time really reading about and understanding his life, you'll get to see what I'm talking about. Um, but you'll find that as a leader, you have this difficult life path because that's what you must do. A leader must lead. You must be the one that is in front. You must be the one that faces whatever danger is out there, whether it's a narcissistic line manager or a narcissistic executive or a system that's in place that is breaking people's spirits because it's built around people's ambition and need for self-aggrandizement and selfish desires, right? You must be the one that stands in front. You must be the one that has the vision. You must be the one that shows people the way, right? If we take it into a biblical context, like Moses, Moses was given the anointing and the assignment of being a leader, and he had to lead the Israelites from Egypt into the promised land, into Canaan. That wasn't easy. The people grumbled all the time and they wanted meat. And there was a time when there was no water and he got angry and he hit the rock, to get the water out of the rock so that the people could drink. And, God then punished him by not letting him into the promised land. There was a time that God wanted to kill all the people because they had sinned, and Moses literally fell on his face before the Lord, fasted and prayed, and the Lord then relented and did not kill the people. Instead, I think he opted to kill the generation of people that rebelled, so they wouldn't enter the land, but their children did. But I'm just giving these examples as some of the difficult things that leadership must do, right? A person in leadership must do those things, which is why you are given the anointing, Amakosi, who are your royal ancestors of your lineage. And we say Amakosi because you don't get counsel from one, but from several. So it's literally a counsel. You can call it a spiritual kitchen cabinet if you want to. But they come as a collective to help you to rule in whatever area of your life you're ruling, whether it's in corporate or in church or your small business or whatever sphere you find yourself in, where you are called upon to lead. They are there to whisper guidance, to help you resolve difficult situations, because amongst that collective of rulers and leaders who are your ancestors, there are people there that have faced exactly the same situation, so they know exactly what you're going through. But if we go back to the issue of rank, if your spirit guides are of a higher rank than the spirit guides of the person placed in authority over you, there's a point where they will become jealous of you. There is a point where they will start to create drama and get into conflict with you. There's a point where they will start to fight with you. They will start to compete with you. And if they see that they cannot break you emotionally or mentally, what they will do is they will go around and whisper to people around you, your peers, other people in leadership positions above you, so that they change other people's opinions of you. And that's typically what narcissists do, right? If they can't get you to change your opinion of yourself so that you submit to them and let them do whatever they want with you, they will go around and they will whisper in the ears of other people to make you look like the bad person, to make other people hate you, and to create drama, right? And I've experienced that several times in my career. And it's really because they're jealous. They're jealous of your anointing. They're jealous of your ability. They know deep down you're better than them. They cannot handle it. And because they would have gotten to the positions that they've gotten to through scheming and subterfuge, they think you're going to do the same to them, even though you're not. But it's not about the truth. It's just about people's perception. An often favorite saying of narcissists is perception is reality, which is why they're very good at managing perceptions. Because as long as you can make it look like that, then that's the reality. It doesn't matter what the truth is. What matters is what people believe. So if they can make people believe that you are incompetent, then that's what people believe, therefore you're incompetent. And there's not much you can do except keep plugging away quietly and looking for strategic opportunities to expose the truth. It's either that or you leave that job or that church or whatever. You leave that place because they're not going to change. And it's not unique to you. They'll do that with anybody they come into contact with who is a threat. When you hear people say, oh, your manager feels that you're a threat, it's because at a spiritual level, your line manager or the person set in authority above you is feeling the heat. They're feeling the heat of their own incompetence, if they're completely incompetent. They're feeling the heat of you being seen by others, because chances are your name is being mentioned in rooms that you're not even sitting in. That person is sitting in these rooms and they're hearing your name being mentioned, and they get annoyed because this is a person that works for them. The person who should be mentioned is them, but no, it's you. So they become jealous and angry and vindictive, and they start to fight with you. And I did make a video previously about your anointing bringing enemies. And when you have a leadership anointing, it brings out a very specific kind of enemy that will fight against you. And this is somebody who is set in authority over you, who feels threatened by you. And what they will do is they will go and they will recruit people to also slander you and come against you and make your life difficult, because they're already feeling the heat of their life being difficult because they're worried that they're going to lose to you. You're not even in competition with them, but they're in competition with you. So if you go back to the story of King Saul and David, Saul is anointed king over Israel because Israel demanded a king. Fast forward, Saul is a good king. He exiles and executes all the spiritualists and mediums in his zeal to serve the Lord. Good for him. Not so good for us, but that's another story for another day. Then he is given a very specific instruction regarding a certain enemy, and instead of destroying the enemy and destroying everything that belongs to the enemy, he embraces this enemy. And God says, okay, you're not listening, you're disobedient. There's a very specific reason why I told you to destroy those people. You have not done so, so I am going to take away the anointing from you. He remained king, but he no longer had the anointing. So what happens when you remain in leadership and you no longer have the anointing is that you now start to do things in your own strength, right? If you previously had the anointing Eamakosi and you had powerful royal spirit guides walking with you, if you do certain things like, I don't know, black magic, things that are not pleasing to your royal ancestors, they will pull out chairs and they will go and sit by the wall and they'll leave you dancing alone in the middle of the room, right? So that's literally what happened with Saul, King Saul. He was king, but he no longer had the anointing and he had to now try and do everything in his own strength. He no longer had communication with God. There was no visions. There was no more prophecy, nothing coming through, no messages. And this is a man who was fighting a war against the Philistines. And things get very, very difficult to a point where a shepherd boy comes to visit his brother, sent by his father. And there's a giant that has vexed them for, I think, if I'm not mistaken, several days and nights. And that giant was called Goliath. And he made sure that he would insult them in the morning when they were about to offer the morning sacrifice to the Lord, and then he would insult them in the evening when they were about to offer the evening sacrifice to the Lord. And in the end, they were so vexed they couldn't even say their prayers. And as you know, a prayerless people is a powerless people. So they were powerless before this one guy. And it took a little shepherd boy who, unknown to them by then, had been anointed king over Israel, but he's still a shepherd boy. And he, long story short, he slays Goliath with a stone from the river, straight to the third eye. I love that story. And Goliath falls down dead. So he wasn't killed by the sling or the stone or David. He was killed by the Lord. David was just an instrument of the Lord. So one thing as leaders we have to understand is we are instruments. We're not in leadership for ourselves to be like, oh, look how great I am. No, no, no. You're an instrument. You're there for a purpose. You're there to lead. You're there to provide vision, to give direction, to correct things that are wrong, to set things right, and to make things better. You're an instrument. You're not an idol. King Nebuchadnezzar learned the hard way when he, having conquered Israel and the surrounding nations and had this beautiful empire, he thought, oh my God, look at me. I am just so great. I have done all this for myself. And God sent him into the wilderness for 7 years to live as a wild animal, just for him to make the point that actually I'm the one that gave this to you. You didn't do this by yourself. But that's an aside. So Saul then takes David into his service, but when he realizes that David actually has an anointing and David could very well be king, he turns against David and starts to fight with him, and David has to break away and lead his own men. And eventually, when Saul is killed, only then is David anointed and proclaimed king over Israel. But it was a hard road, a hard journey, because leadership isn't about the perks and the comforts and looking good and being on top of things. Leadership is about the people you lead, the community that follows you. You cannot be a leader if you don't have followers. That's why I'm often amused by people who are in authority, particularly in corporate. They have the title, which is positional power, but they don't have the people, which is people following them because they want to follow them. People are following the orders, taking the instructions, they respect your position and they respect the positional power, but their hearts are not in it. If they had a different option, they would go somewhere else. That's why you hear in corporate people say people leave because of their line managers. People don't leave organizations, they leave their managers. Sometimes it's not even the line manager that's the problem. Sometimes it's the manager's manager that's the problem. And people can see this executive is the one that is making life difficult for all of us. So they'd rather leave. So everyone thinks, oh, it's because it's the line manager. No, it's not the line manager. It's you. You who manages the manager. You're the one that's the problem. But that is the thing with spiritual rank and authority. So you have different types of power. You have positional power that comes with your title and your rank. You have referent power, where you gain your power because of your proximity to somebody else. You find people that name drop. Oh, so and so said you must do this, and so says, and this is an instruction from so and so. They're using what's called referent power. I myself don't have the power, but I'm going to refer to somebody else that does have power, and hopefully that will scare you into doing whatever it is I'm telling you to do, right? Referent power. Then you have expert power, people that have put a lot of work into the stuff that they do, and they become experts. They know exactly what they're talking about. When we talk about the 4 stages of knowledge, you don't know that you don't know. That's complete ignorance, utter darkness. Then you know that you don't know. That's an understanding that you don't know it all. Then you don't know that you know. So you've gained some knowledge, but you're still not confident because you know that you're coming from a journey where you didn't know anything. So you don't realize just how much you know, but you do know. And then when you know, that is expert power. This is people that can actually sit on industry bodies and give guidance, people that can tell you exactly what to do in a situation because they've got the experience, they've got the knowledge, they've studied, they've practiced, they understand what they're doing, right? So that's expert power. And often a line manager who doesn't have expert power is deathly afraid of a subordinate that does. But there's one of 2 things you can do if you're that manager. You can harness this expertise, acknowledge that this person's good at what they do, you need them, make sure that you support them and you reward them, and they'll be loyal. Because normally people with expert power aren't seeking leadership or position. They just want to do what they do without being bothered, right? You can take the glory. A lot of them aren't, people with expert power, a lot of them aren't really interested. You can get the glory as the leader of the team, but allow them to work, allow them to do their work. But you find, especially when you work with narcissists, whether it's a covert or an overt narcissist, they actually feel threatened by your expert power. And that was pretty much what was happening with Saul and David, because David was a warrior. Saul was a warrior, but not on the same level as David. Saul no longer had the anointing of leadership, but David had the anointing. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're in conflict, constant conflict with your superiors, it's most likely because your spiritual rank is higher. The spiritual rank of your guides is higher than the spiritual rank of their guides. You most likely are an expert and they are not. Or they just have deep-seated insecurities because of childhood trauma or whatever, things that have nothing to do with you. But I think that's where I'm going to leave it, with really 3 main points about leadership and anointing. Firstly, you can be given an anointing for leadership, right? You may not have studied, you may not have an MBA, you may not have a PhD in business leadership, but you are just a natural leader. And that is because it's a gifting, it's an anointing, it's in your bloodline, it's in your DNA, right? So don't be afraid of it when you are thrust into a leadership position by whatever means. The second thing is, understand that your guides that confer the gifts of leadership on you may be very high-ranking guides that may put you in conflict with people whose guides are lesser than yours. So understand that. And when you understand that, you will realize that all you need to do is protect your energy and find the right opportunities for you and seek out mentorship and leadership of people that are stronger leaders, because you find that people that want to fight with their subordinates, in my opinion, you're either not very smart, not very clever, not very intelligent, or you're allowing your reptilian or lower instincts to hijack your higher functioning brain in the prefrontal cortex, and you're busy fighting for survival against somebody who's actually lesser than you. That for me, sorry, it's not very smart, but it happens. So seek out guidance and counsel and mentorship from leaders who are stronger. Sometimes you have to stay in that situation of conflict and drama to build your resilience, and because maybe you are assigned to end that situation once and for all. So again, don't shy away from the drama and conflict. Handle it with grace, handle it with dignity. Do not stoop to insults or fighting back, because all that does is it lowers your vibration. Handle it with grace and dignity, because amakosi confer dignity, intelligence, and leadership. That's just how it is. So understand that you can have an anointing. Your anointing can be greater than that of those put in authority over you. Use your discernment and make the right decisions for your life as and when you need to. But understand that that is what is actually happening when you find yourself in conflict, particularly when you're in a leadership position. And the last thing that I'm going to leave with you is that understand your assignment. And there are different ways of doing this. You can do personality tests. You can see a reader like me or anyone else you resonate with. Get an understanding of what your assignment is. Because when you understand what your assignment is, you can handle whatever drama and conflict and issues come with it, because there are, again, as I said, people who have a special anointing and special assignment as light workers, which is to wage spiritual war in places of darkness. So if you're one of those, count it all joy, as the Bible said, when they hate you, when they scheme against you, when they fight against you, but understand that they will never overcome you, because you are more than a conqueror, and greater are those that are with you than those that are with them. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope you have a blessed day and a blessed rest of the week, and that you will continue to shine the light in those dark places, and that you will continue to lead the people that you have been entrusted to, and that you will continue to be the visionary and the guardian that they need you to be. Have a blessed day, and thank you for watching.